Hi, my name is Terrance. I'm an architecture graduate of Southern University, class of 2001. I'm also the nephew of Denver Smith, one of the students who were killed on November 16, 1972. And I'm here with my uncle, Nelson.
And again, my name is Nelson Smith. I'm the baby brother of Denver Smith. The day he was killed, I just made my birthday a few weeks before that. I guess just like, any other graduating senior from high school pursuing higher education, he took that path as well, majoring in computer science. And being a black college, I'm sure that was probably led to some of his decision as to what college he would attend. And so, yeah.
And some of the stories that I've heard about him was how excellent he was in math, and how he chose his major as computer science, and it was right in line with his talents of being a math whiz. So prior to November 16, 1972, a group of students came together and formed a list of grievances that they had. Some of them were directly connected to the university, some of them were beyond the university, but this group of students had been protesting for weeks prior to the untimely death of my uncle and Denver Smith and Leonard Brown. On that specific day, my uncle was on a commuter bus traveling from New Roads to the Baton Rouge campus, and he was not actively participating in the protests at that moment. However, my Aunt Josephine, his sister, was here. She was in or near the administration building. He left the bus knowing she was there, came to look for her, left his belongings there, and he never made it back. Moments later, he was pronounced dead, and then that information was later passed on to the family. And my uncle, who was around and alive at that time, could speak more to that. Myself personally, I was not born at the time. I was born 6 years later. And the impact of that day and what happened on that day, he could speak to better than I can.
Yeah, so I was very young at that time, just made 7, and we were in class. We had joined 2 classes together to watch a film at that time, and I remember one of my siblings, my older sister, came to the door of the classroom and said something to the teacher, and the teacher gave a reaction that it was something not good, that my sister advised her of. And therefore, they asked me to leave the class and go with my sister. And on the way home, and I'm asking questions, why are we leaving? And they then informed me that my brother was shot. I was young at the time, I guess around 7 at that time, and so I wasn't sure if they said shot or shock, because he was, again, majored in, computer science. Was always working on things around the house, the televisions. Back then we worked on television, we just didn't replace them. And so I didn't know if he was shocked from working on the television or he got shot. So, but I remember walking over, we lived in close proximity to the school, so we walked to school. And so all of my siblings that was in school at that time, we all walked back. And from there, things began to unfold of just how bad the situation was, and that he was shot, and he did die from the gunshot wounds, and that began the trauma that my family began to incur and face, and it just spiraled into a situation that you can really not imagine that a family had to go through, receiving such news, and not knowing what to do, how, about the situation. It's just, it had a great impact even to today, that the impact was so great that even to today, my siblings that survived, are still surviving, are having problems dealing with. It's something that we have not yet found closure for. Just to have a little more detail about it, I mean, I can recall phone calls from, I'm not sure from who, that was, supposed to be threatening phone calls, you know, and I can remember just the police was always around the house. You know, I can remember just something like, you know, in hindsight, I can see now and call it chaos. It wasn't a good time. And there never was any resolve, you know, to where the family can, again, have some closure on what happened. It just wasn't good. And even today, well, again, like I said, we're still having problems finding closure. We didn't, back then, you know, counseling wasn't a big thing after a tragic situation. I'm sure, you know, we got all kind of terms to describe the aftermath of such a horrific event, you know, PTSD and all of that stuff. I'm sure we, you know, suffered from that. Again, like I said, even today, it's hard for some of my siblings to deal with that, you know, and have conversation about it, to recant some of those things that took place. But again, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, the future would change because of it. You know, the future of Southern, the future of just our world as it exists, our country. Because, you know, the injustice we see today is the same injustice that happened back then. You know, obvious, you know, wrongful death, if you're putting it mildly, but it's actually, you know, you can call it a murder or killing of individuals caught on camera and never got any, you know, satisfaction from it, for lack of a better term to use. And we see it today unfolding on our televisions today, you know, person after person being gunned down by, you know, our law enforcement that's supposed to be protecting us, and nothing is done. We have to go through a lot to try to get something done, and in most cases, nothing is done. So I'm hoping some way where all of these things can connect, and we can kind of produce a better tomorrow, if all possible. Yeah.
And so on that day, from my mom's perspective, my mom was in high school at the time, dating my father, and my father knew that she had left the class but didn't know why, and he didn't find out until my Aunt Ada, who was probably the same one that came to get you out of the classroom.
I think it was my sister Gloria did.
So, so my Aunt Ada, he saw her crying outside and asked what happened, and then that's how he found out what happened. And then later, my dad and a group of my mom's friends came by to, I guess, console or to be there with her. And at the time, we had aunts and uncles that were not in town that, you know, heard about what happened and having to travel back home and deal with the trauma of their brother being killed, you know, by their own government.
Yeah.
And it's tragic that that he, you know, with so much promise, wasn't able to fulfill a goal, doing the right things, going to college, and for him to, you know, to die this way is tragic. And I think that's something that we should consider when we hear about young people being killed, the amount of lost potential and the amount of promise that goes by the wayside because of these unjustified acts of violence.
Right. Yeah, and so I have to give some recognition to my nephew for pursuing this and starting the foundation and just doing a lot of things behind the scenes to help with dealing with this all, to help commemorate, you know, the memory, the memorial, and the memory of my brother. So I appreciate him doing that. And one of the things we were able to come away with, because my mother wanted her son's death not to be in vain. You know, that was her biggest thing. I remember as a kid, I always remember she saying, "I don't want my son's death to be in vain." And so, you know, she took steps to help my younger sister, who was a freshman at that time. But because of that, the situation, how things transpired, was reluctant to come back to school. And so, and I think the reason why she was on campus and in the administration building at that time, because she was a freshman, I think, and so she was actually staying on campus. But because she didn't want to come back to school, my mom decided, I'm gonna go back with you. So my mom actually enrolled in school as well, and they both finished in elementary education just to get her daughter to go back to school, you know. And so, but the thing that rang out was that she didn't want her son's debt to be in vain. And as a little kid, I never could really grasp what that mean. Again, until my nephew here began his inquiry and just trying to get information, and he came up with an opportunity to give back to other kids, you know, to do this, do his foundation to where, you know, we can do scholarships. My brother was pursuing his dreams of, you know, trying to, you know, increase his education and to be productive in the community and in the world. But his dream was cut short because of the bullet of a deputy sheriff. So I really appreciate what my nephew have come up with, and including the family as well. But because of that, you know, we've started this foundation to help students that may have opportunity to come to school but may not can continue, from what I've heard, because of financing. So this scholarship program that he's developed will assist and help those type of situations, those kids that may need assistance with going to school. And that, again, I think I can tie that into when my mom said, I don't want my son's debt to be in vain. That's something can be a legacy that can continue, you know, and to help support and I think fulfill that desire that she had to not let her son debt be in vain. So.
And I felt the obligation to do the work along with lots of other people that support the foundation in this work, you know, and not letting my grandmother's or making my grandmother's wish become real in the best way that we know how today, and allowing kids or scholars to pursue and complete their education. And if the only barrier they have is funding, then I think we could support them in that. And this journey, you know, it's been going on for a long time, being named after my uncle and carrying, you know, his legacy in that way. I felt obligated to do something to keep his name alive, to tell his story, and also help the generation to come. And what I also want to do too is give a message to young scholars that are in school or in the process of coming to college, to understand that we need to pay homage to the people that came before us. And a lot of the benefits that students have today at Southern University is because of the sacrifice of others that came before, including my uncle and others. And it's also an opportunity to leaders of university or administrations to understand that the students are an authority and they are the most important part of college and higher education, and we need to respect them and treat them as such.